Hello. I'm not sure if I'm live yet. Oh, maybe I am. Ha ha ha. It's a good thing I wasn't picking my nose. So, oh my goodness. So today we're talking about how to handle criticism for your communities online. Um, so this is really interesting for me because it's something that, uh-oh, I'm hearing myself. So give me one second. So, yes, building communities online. I'm learning. I'm learning as I go. Sorry, guys. So, we're going to talk about criticism and how people tend to criticize voices. And really, I want to start at this idea that when we speak up in this environment where a lot of people have something to say in this current time about social injustice, about health, about so many of the things that are going so wrong in the world today. So wrong in some ways, so right in others. Like there's some things that we're blessed to be able to actually have conversations on finally. A lot of us have been silent for too long, and so what you'll hear from a lot of people is anger because of that and about that and the desire to not even want to deal with it anymore because of how much it's been about not being able to express yourself in the full expression of who you are. And so what wanting to at minimum get across is that you'll hear a lot of anger as what I heard a very wise woman talk about as a stage of grief. So a lot of the anger is a stage of grief, and not just from um, people that are Black and are in the Black Lives Matter movement, but even people of other color of that are not Black, but they have the same feelings of grief, whether that be for their friends and their family, or it be because of just the grief that their own culture is living like this, right? So they have their own sense of grief as well, and I think we just have to remember that when people are grieving, that is sometimes there's a stage that shows up as anger. And so if you feel like you can't talk to somebody or they're telling you not to talk to them about this, then that doesn't mean you stop caring. Because just like if somebody had died, and if you feel like they're mourning somebody and they're grieving a death, you would just tell them that you care. You would just tell them that you're there for them, but you wouldn't put anything extra on them, right? You wouldn't say, oh, well, can you explain to me like your relationship with the person that died? Like, can you explain to me why this is so hard for you? And like, you wouldn't, you wouldn't make them have to work harder at it, right? Like their job is only to grieve. Their job is to mourn and to be sad or however the emotion they need to be so that they can move through their grief, right? And a lot of that means just listening. A lot of that means just listening to where they are and how they're feeling. And that doesn't mean you have to do anything. That doesn't mean you have to say anything. But if you're friends and you just want them to know you care, then that's all you have to say. You know, I really care about you and I care what's going on for you. And if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here, right? And I'm willing to listen, right? Not give advice, but to listen. So we're going to talk a little bit about that advice quotient, especially as it comes to the voice, because if you are ready to start speaking up, and all perspectives are important. You know, every cultural expression is important. It's not just important that Black people speak up. It's important that Indigenous people speak up. It's important that Asians, peoples, and all the white people and all the peoples of all the people, because we're people. And when we hear more perspectives, we hear more of the whole of what's going on. We can get a balanced view. But when people start silencing themselves, as you can see, it's not a good thing. right? Feelings build up and it gets bigger. And it's not just about, the protest. This is about COVID as well. Like when feelings build up over eons, not eons, but like, hundreds and hundreds of years, then there's this deep catharsis that happens, right? And whether you believe COVID is is a thing or not, still a catharsis because we're still expressing it in that way, right? We're still expressing the actions of whatever we think or don't think it is, right? So things to look out for when you're getting criticized, when you do decide to speak up, or if you haven't and you're worried about the criticism that's coming, then these are the things that you want to think about. Uh-oh, we got some music in the background. um, so the things you want to think about, is this coming from a knowledgeable source? Right? Just because somebody has emotions and just because somebody has a personal experience doesn't mean that they're the end all be all on the subject of racism in America, right? That's why a lot of people are recommending books and articles because people actually study this thing and have thought about solutions for a long time now. And it's a good idea to check in on these people to see what solutions they are bringing to the table because they've done the most work on it, right? Um, and then you can get, and if you read more than one book, then again you get more perspectives from knowledgeable sources. Then you can consider yourself informed. Then you can give an informed opinion, right? Educated opinion. But until then, it's just it's just talk of your own perspective, which is also valid. Just be real when you're talking about something that you perceive and something that you have studied and garnered knowledge on, right? Um, and the number two is well, let me first talk about how that relates to singing because obviously that's my wheelhouse. That's my area of expertise, so to speak. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I have heard too many times how somebody's family told them they couldn't sing, or their friend said they couldn't sing, or their partner, or their children, or all these people that are not knowledgeable sources of singing, right? And if they're not knowledgeable, if they haven't studied, if they haven't made a very clear work of knowing what the capabilities are and how the voice works, then I would not pay a lick of attention. And then I know there's also teachers that are too opinionated in this fact because the reality is a lot of teachers teach, unfortunately, a lot of singing teachers teach people who are already good at singing. And so they think that if that the person doesn't come to them already singing perfectly well, that they're not talented, which is just absurd, right? You just need to get to a real teacher. A real teacher can actually teach you how to sing. Right? They don't need you to come already knowing how to sing. A real teacher will teach you how the voice works, and they will teach you how to sing on pitch. They'll teach you how to be expressive, how to be musical. Like a real teacher is going to be able to teach you the whole gamut. They're not going to, well, and every teacher has their own objectives, so I shouldn't lambast other teachers. But I'm just saying that my singers don't have to come to me already singing like amazing vocalists, right? I assume they're coming to me so that they can learn how to use their voice, and that's what I'm here for. Um, so there's the second one is that the person that's giving you criticism is actually offering a solution. So this is the difference between constructive criticism and just talking for no reason, right? So if that person is just talking for no reason, it's not sorry. Tell them how you really feel, Manifa. Like if you're just talking for no reason, then you don't have to worry about that person's opinion. I mean, they have every right to have an opinion. They're people. They have a right to opinions. And if there's not a solution offered that you understand and that you know how to do and how to walk with, right? then it's not a real solution, and you can probably leave the criticism, constructive or not at the on the floor. You can leave it there. Right? You can walk away from that and feel good because you might want to remember it when there's something that applies and that does make you understand that solution. But until then, it's just an idea somebody told you once, and it's may or may not be relevant because there was no actual action oriented solution for you, right? Um, and that's so that again, that's very much applies to singing. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has the way they want to hear a voice. Everybody has like, an ideal that's set up in their own head. And it may or may not be for you. And more important than that, if they can't tell you how to reach it, then it's moot. It's not useful, right? If they can't tell you how to reach that ideal, they can't be clear on how to reach that ideal. Okay. So the third thing is that you have to remember, so this is more philosophy, like all this isn't philosophy, but like the third thing is that you got to remember that criticism is based on the idea that there's an ideal to begin with. Criticism is based on the idea that there is a perfect way to sing, or it's a perfection to be reached. And while that's, really lovely for for us artists and creatives, one of the things that we love to do is play with a sense of perfection, like what how close can we get to that heavenly idea in our mind, which is all ideal comes from, is the idea that can be so pristine in the mind that has to, when you come out and put it into real life, it just might not make it to that full ideal, right? Um, so when that happens, then we really have to say, okay, whose idea of perfection is this? Right? I have a mem that says, don't work your butt off for somebody else's idea of success. I don't know why I can't say that. Don't work your butt off for somebody else's idea of success, right? Because that's their version of perfection. That's their ideal. Like if you don't want to sound like that, then why are you listening to that person? Right? If they don't know how to sing, period, why are we listening to the criticism of people who do not know how to sing? Now, everybody has an opinion and they can have an ideal of what they want. And this includes conductors, producers, engineers, instrumentalists. We love you sometimes. And like, but you can have an idea, you can have an opinion, but if you don't know how to do it yourself, you're not going to be able to give us a solution, right? And it's up to us as musicians, as singers, um, and musicians to know how to reach that ideal if we're doing a collaboration of some kind, right? But outside of that, you can't talk from this kind of a lot of instrumentalists do this, a lot of conductors do this. They kind of talk down to singers, like, can you do it right? Like kind of and it's like, hun, like if it was as easy as you perceive that it may be, I would already be doing it right. Right. And then there's always exceptions to every rule. So there's lovely, lovely people that just tell you what they want more of, and then you can go within yourself as an artist and feel how you can bring that more to the front, right? And this is the same thing when you're going out there and talking about how you feel about the current climate situation, health crisis, uh, social um, social injustice, right? You get to say how you feel. And don't be mad when somebody takes it as an opinion, right? It's your perspective and it's necessary. We need everybody's perspective because that's how, again, we come to a cohesion of a balanced understanding. But But yeah, but don't be surprised if you're not the knowledgeable source and people take it with a grain of salt, right? Um, Opinions always matter more from people who are actually caring, actually invested, actually considering the information that has been put out in that hand, has actually worked towards that information and that's been put at hand, which again, it's the same thing with conductors. I've met some conductors who, while they might not sing, they spent a good amount of time learning about the voice. They spent a good amount of time about learning about the instrument of singing and finding out what works and what doesn't work for the voice, right? And so those conductors are a lot easier to get their advice or their opinion from because they've done the work, because they've already done the work. And so it applies the same way. So one last thing that I want to say, you know, we've talked about um, when you get criticism that we are sure it's coming from a knowledgeable source, a source that um, is somebody who's addressing the issue or talking about the issue in the way that you hope the resolution can come to pass. Um, and this, the same thing about singing, a teacher that is talking about singing in the way that you want it to come to pass. So if you're somebody who wants to just sing in presence and joy and just truly joyfully expressing yourself in a moment, then don't go to somebody who's like got all this formal raw, you must do it this way, no other way but this way, right? Like that's not your teacher, right? Find a teacher that thinks of this the way you think of it, right? Number two is that it has to have an actual solution. Now, so not just an idea of a solution, but a solution that you can actionably execute, right? That you understand to the level that you can do it, right? Then that's a constructive criticism. That's advice that you can actually use, right? Number three is remember that there's no real thing as perfection, not really. And your idea of success, it may be different from the person that's talking to you. So first, get aligned on that. Like if you're aligned on that, then you can go further and actually get the advice and then work to apply it, right? But get aligned on the fact that, okay, yeah, but this is the way I want to do it. I want to sing um, in a cafe with a microphone and hopefully no more than 20 people shut up. Like that's the way I want to sing, right? Then that's going to be a different application of understanding of the voice than it would be if you want to sing for a thousand people on a stage without a microphone, right? Or you want to sing for yourself and just to enjoy your spiritual work, right? At church, in a choir, or in ritual and ceremony. If you want to lead a ritual ceremony, that space is different. It's a different way of applying voice and vocal technique. You need a sense of healing, you need a sense of energy. In my opinion, all singers need this, but even more so, right? Because you're creating that space. And that's super important to just be informed about how that happens vocally and how to consistently do that in a healthy way, right? You don't want to be hurting your voice. You don't want to be hurting while you're supposed to be healing, right? And that's a big issue that I see with a lot of people that use their voice as a work for healing, including speaking, including speaking. Okay, please talk to me about it. We can have a conversation. So final. Constructive criticism comes from somebody that has experienced the solution firsthand and know that it works. Okay, so if you haven't personally experienced it, then it's a rumor, right? like this is my reference. If you got the story from a friend, then it's a rumor. Even if you trust that friend implicitly, even though if you know that friend would never lie, that's still a rumor in my book. If you were there or it happened to you, then that's a firsthand account, right? And so if you're getting criticism or advice about something that person hasn't experienced firsthand with themselves or with somebody that they've been in the presence of, then it's not, I don't consider that a constructive criticism. Not in my house. Not in my and how I show up, right? And so I think that's just one way, again, that's just like turning down the volume. There's a lot of voices out there. And while they're all important and they're all important for the cohesive understanding, that they may not all apply to you. And that's the difference. We've got to respect all the voices. And then we've got to decide which ones are closest to our understanding, our path, how we want to move forward. Right. And that's all we can do. And the more we do that, I think the more we can really create the next amazing thing. I think that's the beauty of all the voices showing up. So don't let the criticism silence you. Don't let the criticism silence your voice and what you have to say, because it's important. Somebody might need your voice to put another step on that path that they want to walk. Okay. I hope you're having an amazing Thursday otherwise, and I hope to see you again. Ta-ta for now.